Tucker Carlson decided that it would be a great idea to equate migrants attempting to enter the United States at its southern border to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, this came in the context of a debate he had with a representative from Florida. Maria Salazar is her name, and although she's a Republican, she has proposed a bill that unfortunately is dead on arrival, but it would create a pathway to citizenship for immigrants who are currently in the United States but happen to be undocumented. Now, of course, Tucker Carlson is not in favor of that, and he wants to continue his pro-Putin commentary for some reason, so he decided to inject it in the context of this debate. Take a listen.
People who came over our border without permission are not being punished, they are instead being rewarded. And so you
they're not. Let
me
answer to
a
that.
very
No,
different
that's
standard
not
to
true.
Ukraine. I'm wondering if Russians fleeing Putin, do you believe should be allowed to start new and better lives in Ukraine? And I bet you'd say no, because you believe in Ukrainian nationalism, but not American. Well, I just can't help notice the contrast between your desire to send MiGs to Ukraine to preserve its borders, but not here. Should we send the US military to the Mexican border, since you have admitted that tens of millions of people have come here illegally?
To compare the impact of undocumented immigrants in the United States to what Vladimir Putin is doing to Ukraine is one of the most disgusting and deceitful arguments imaginable. I mean, obviously, we rely on undocumented immigrants for our economy to run smoothly. If you do away, let's say you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants, this country's economy would collapse. And what she's trying to do is actually, I need to read more details into it. I'll give you a quick summary, but it's better than nothing. Unfortunately, it's dead on arrival. Republicans have already rejected. Kevin McCarthy says he's not interested in it. The Salazar bill would allow undocumented immigrants who have lived in the United States for more than 5 years to stay and work here without the threat of deportation. It also offers them a path to citizenship, but it's a long one. They couldn't apply for permanent residency and a green card required before seeking citizenship for at least 15 years. So she's a Republican, and of course she has to make it seem like, this, I'm being really tough on them for being here illegally. But at least there's a Republican trying to propose a pathway to citizenship for these folks, because many of them are abused since they don't have legal status. They're underpaid, they work in terrible working conditions, and they don't feel safe ever complaining about it or going to the authorities. But nonetheless, what Tucker did there, I mean, Cenk, I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, so look, why are we not criticizing the Republican politician there? Because everybody in media thinks you shouldn't do the news, you should just pick sides. So no, she's proposing a bill that's better than nothing, as Anna pointed out. It's not better by much. Indentured servants had to serve 7 years and then they would be freed in America. She's saying people that come into the country have to serve 15 years, and then they are on a pathway to citizenship, okay? So that's brutal. The history books will look at this time and go, it was worse in some ways, at least for indentured servants, than at the beginning of the country. That is unbelievable. And that is the best case scenario now.
I know.
So we're giving her credit for that brutal proposal because it's better than the current brutality that they live under, where they have no hope, right?
Where they have no rights whatsoever and live in constant fear of deportation.
Now, to Tucker's point, now these folks have come in and what have they done? They've taken the hardest jobs in America. They provided for their family, some of whom live here. A lot of them have paid taxes because you can't avoid the payroll tax, but since they don't have Social Security and Medicare, they're never gonna get that money back. So they have contributed into the system through taxes, sales taxes, etc., that they cannot take advantage of later. So they've contributed to the economy, and then a lot of them have become our neighbors, friends, etc., okay? In fact, some of them have become our families. When Trump started deporting some of them in the middle of the country, people are like, wait, we didn't know you were gonna deport our friends. We thought you were going to deport the evil folks down by the border, etc. And so that's what the immigrants in this country have done. And by the way, as they always talk about the violence, American-born citizens are 4 times more likely to commit a crime than an undocumented immigrant. 4 times more likely, okay? So they're also very peaceful. Now, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, on the other hand, do you think it was peaceful?
Well, Cenk, I like to do what? Provide receipts. okay? So I want you to compare the economic stability that is currently here in the United States as a result of undocumented immigrants doing jobs that Americans don't want to do, to what Russians are doing in Ukraine, what Russian troops are doing in Ukraine as we speak. Tucker Carlson wants to compare the two, equate the two. Let's watch.
Firefighters rushing to extinguish the flames from a residential block reportedly hit by a Russian rocket. Shell-shock survivors being rescued from the damaged building. And in Kharkiv, near the Russian border, a market destroyed in a strike that killed 3 and injured 5. These images playing out across towns and cities as civilian areas are pummeled every day now by Russian missiles. In the besieged port city of Mariupol, the injured are rushed to one of the few remaining hospitals as the Russian bombardment intensifies.
So again, Tucker Carlson, he's not dumb. Tucker Carlson's not dumb. He's not ignorant. He did that on purpose. He compared undocumented immigrants in the United States to Vladimir Putin's invasion into Ukraine and argued that we need to use our military at the border to keep asylum seekers, refugees, all of those people out. That's what Tucker Carlson did. And by the way, the thing that really frustrated me about that interview, Cenk, is that Salazar, the Republican lawmaker there, just got steamrolled and went with Tucker Carlson's framing. Now I get it, when you're on live TV, sometimes it's chaotic, you lose control, but don't accept his framing. Here's a little piece of that.
You don't seem as appalled by the violation of our borders by tens of millions of people. So let me ask you for the third time.
Sure, I do. That's a misrepresentation.
Okay, then would you support the US military securing the United States border tonight or on the same timetable as sending MiGs to Ukraine? How about that?
That's hypothetical again.
No, it's a very straightforward question. What are you talking? You're a lawmaker.
No, it's not
hypothetical. What do you mean? Just say it. You're not for it, and you're for it in Ukraine, but not here.
You're giving me the whole segment, which is great, and I thank you very much. Let's go back to my bill.
Wrong. I don't want to misrepresent
I am
you.
correct.
I'm asking you, you don't support sending the US military to the border. You don't. I just want our viewers to understand that you're for defending a foreign country, but not our own.
No, you moron. I do not support sending the US military to our border because we don't have a country attempting to take over our country and do away with our sovereignty.
Yeah.
Immigrants are not trying to do away with the United States sovereignty. They're not invading our country. They're not bombing our country. They're not shelling our schools, our hospitals, our theaters. This guy is disgusting. I mean, Jesus.
Well, if the US went to the military, went to the border, what would they do? So if there was going to be an incoming invasion, if the undocumented immigrants were shelling San Antonio and they had hit half the buildings, or as Putin has done in Mariupol, hit 80% of the buildings with bombs. If the undocumented immigrants had bombed Dallas and Houston and Phoenix, right? Then of course we would defend ourselves. We would send the military to the border because they had to do a military fight and a defense of the country. But we're not in that situation. Nobody has dropped missiles. That's not a thing. It's a hypothetical dreamed up by Tucker Carlson. He thinks people coming to pick lettuce is the same thing as a missile strike that kills your family members, as we showed earlier in the show, as happened in Ukraine. Look at that logical fallacy, and he does it on purpose.
Yep.
He clearly misdirects you. So when they go to the border, the US military, the only thing they have to do is to do law enforcement on this side of the border. But that's actually illegal. The United States military cannot operate inside the United States for good reason. It's to protect our freedom, because our founding fathers saw what a military by a king and authoritarian leader could do inside a country, and that's why they forbid it. It was to defend the country, not to operate inside the country. Now, Tucker Carlson also knows that. So he's asking her, will you do something that's illegal? Will you do something that's illegal?
Right.
With no purpose at all, and then comparing that to the murderous invasion of Ukraine by Vladimir Putin. So these are all rhetorical tricks, and he does all of them because he thinks his audience is not that bright, that they won't catch on to a single trick that he's doing. But I will give Salazar credit on this. At least she stood her ground, unlike Ted Cruz. You remember Ted Cruz Tucker Carlson yelled at Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz became a sniveling mess. He melted on that set and apologized to Tucker 3-4 times. Salazar, 10 times the strength of Ted Cruz, at least said, no, Tucker, I don't agree, and I'm gonna stand for what I believe in. So good on her for doing that. At least she has some parts that Ted Cruz does not.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.